I'm Gabe Lullo, and welcome to the Do Hard Things podcast. We're talking to go-to-market leaders and entrepreneurs who have conquered the challenges, the hustle, and the grind. Get ready for real talk, real insights, and no fluff.
But the hardest thing in the world right now is not actually closing deals, it's actually getting somebody's attention.
If you don't have that hook in that first 5 to 10 seconds, guess what? They're going to scroll to the next one.
You need to go in and you need to make it sound like yourself. That's the biggest piece of the puzzle. And I promise you, we can all tell.
The people that are trolls and the people that are haters never done the thing that you're doing.
I love doing this podcast because I get a front row seat to some of the greatest minds in sales.
Gone are the days of saying stay in your lane. When you're an executive leader and you're an enterprise-wide leader, there are no lanes. You've got to be partners.
Curiosity is like when the type of questions you ask is sometimes the value that you bring.
I need you to tell me when you're ready to buy or what you're ready to do. And I think it's changed so much into like adding more value. And if you're not doing that, then you're definitely going to come off as desperate.
High pressure selling is like a dinosaur tactic at this point.
No parent is like, oh, you should be a salesperson when you grow up, right? Everyone's like a doctor, lawyer, whatever crap. It's never salespeople.
It's not your job to motivate people. It's your job to find motivated people.
It's not cockiness. It's not arrogance. It's confidence knowing I know this and I know that I can help you.
From where I started to where I am today is all because I learned how to sell.
And there's too many people who have only been doing this for 5 freaking minutes. Sit down, close your mouth, actually go out there and get yourself beat up. Then come back and tell me if something is dead or not.
That is exactly why I started this podcast, because right there, that's the epitome of doing hard things.
Welcome back to the Do Hard Things podcast with Lexi and Gabe. Today's guest, Brianne Price, is a CPG executive, president, and chief revenue officer who's built a career turning emerging consumer brands into household names and profitable exits. Brianne has scaled brands across hair care, cosmetics, skincare, food, and housewares from under $10 million to over $100 million in revenue. She's expanded distribution into retailers like Walmart, Target, Sephora, and Ulta, launched D2C platforms, and led multiple brands to successful exits, all while delivering consistent growth. What sets her apart is her ability to live at the intersection of creativity and business discipline, building brands consumers love while driving the numbers that make investors happy. She's a leader with a track record of high-performing teams, multi-million-dollar partnerships, and brands positioned for sustainable growth. Brianne, welcome to the show.
All right, welcome everyone back to the Do Hard Things podcast with Gabe and Lexi. Brianne, welcome to the show. We just heard your bio. We're so excited you're here. You're obviously doing some amazing things. Thanks so much for spending the time. How you doing today?
Yeah, I'm great. I'm really excited to finally be able to sit down with you guys and spend some time. So,
absolutely. Well, I always love to start with your origin story, right? You know, this show is called Do Hard Things. We just don't become successful overnight. It starts somewhere. So what was that early career? What was that origin story? Let's start with yours. You know, how did you get into CPG and how did you, start that moment or where that moment started when you realized you had talent for scaling consumer brands?
I think I was I was born a consumer. I mean, my mom always teased me that my Christmas list was petrifying to her when I was 4. I asked for like fur coats and makeup and stilettos. I even asked for I think Prince had a song out called Raspberry Beret, and I asked for a raspberry beret when I was I just wanted things, and I don't know, and I didn't grow up with much, but that was just born inside of me. But I knew I always wanted to work with products or work with brands from a very early age. I really started in CPG. I want to say my first experience with a CPG company was I was sweeping hair in a salon. And I was in cosmetology school in high school because I had finished all my college prerequisites early. And my school had a vocational program at it. And it was like auto shop, welding, or cosmetology. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take cosmetology. I knew I was going to go to school and get my undergrad, but I was like, this will be a cool thing to do. And I was sweeping hair in a salon right around the corner from where I live now, and they got this new line into the hair salon called Bumble and Bumble, and it just come out. And I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And it was like I don't know, like 97 or 98 or something. And I was like, this is like it for me. I know I want to be in products. Like the packaging was so cool and the messaging was so cool. And I was just like, that was so fresh and new and different than anything else I had seen. And it really kind of sparked my interest in it and led me down the journey of what the rest of my career was. So
Such a
yeah.
great story, and I love that. I love the early age wanting everything. I feel like me and my sister were both there.
Terrible. And I have 3 girls, so I'm really gonna
Oh
feel the pain
no.
on that
Yeah.
as
Karma.
they get a little older. I already am with a few, but yeah.
I love it. And you've led multiple brands to profitable exit. What does that journey actually look like, and what separates a brand that exits successfully versus one that stalls out?
I mean, I think that, it's really important a couple of different things. I think it's really important for a brand, especially if it's a founder-led brand, to realize when they've gotten to the place that they've capped out. Like, I've taken it to where I can take it, and now I need someone else to come in and help me with their perspective or their experience, take it to the next level. And I think that is one of the critical inflection points in a business and in a brand that really takes it to the next level. So I think that decision being made early and at the right kind of the right time in the curve is critical to a brand being able to be grown and exited profitably. I also think, digging into it when you start and not changing anything too quickly. So it's something I've learned with every brand or every company I've ever worked with. And I think, when you uh, start somewhere, a lot of times people have a philosophy of like, I'm going to come in and I'm going to make my stamp. I'm going to put my stamp on this company or I'm going to change whatever to make it Brianne Price version of X. And, there's a reason it got to the place that it did without you. And I think it's really important to honor that and understand and learn what are the foundations that are already built, what is stable and what is working, and what are the things that are shaky and look like they need that extra bit of love and attention. And that's how you really kind of take it from where it is to where it needs to go. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've been across so many different product lines, right? You've worked across hair, you've worked across cosmetics, skin, food care. I'm sorry, skincare, food, and obviously housewares. They're very different categories.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies are saying, oh, product-led growth, product-led growth. But, it's really about branding-led growth, right? If you think about it. So about that branding, thought process behind it, how does that change from product to product, or does it?
I don't think it should. I mean,
Yeah.
technically, if you're gonna build the brand is the most important thing, and if it has to be so crystallized, and then once you understand what are I always say, for me, I like things to be very simple. I'm like a 3-pillar girl. Like, what are your 3 pillars? What do you stand for as a brand? And whatever you do, product development wise, go to market strategy wise, social media, everything that you put out there into the universe that consumers are going to consume, be it product or content or packaging, has to align with those 3 pillars. And if you veer off of them, it's okay to occasionally, especially when brands are new and early and they're trying to figure things out and take risks. But I think as soon as you realize it's not serving you and not working, it's important, just as important to cut bait and move on and do something different.
Totally. And when you're at that point, like you mentioned before, about it's time maybe to bring in another person to help you scale, get from that under $10 million to that 100 million plus in revenue. What's typically that part where brands really get stuck trying to scale?
I think it's moving into a different channel of distribution. I think brands get really comfortable being like, I talk to brands all the time with my consultancy and also just generally with friends, people that are always like reaching out and just asking for my advice. And I think it's one of those things that I've seen as a common thread where they might be really, really prolific on Amazon or really, really prolific on a direct to consumer business, but they can't figure out how to make the jump to retail. Or they were really strong in retail and they have no idea how to scale it or make it work on Amazon. I think making that omni-channel strategy and that ecosystem work is where people get stuck typically. And that's what really takes it from where it is to where it needs to go.
So what stage really does that revenue playbook change, right? Because there's always the revenue ceiling to break through, going from 10 million to 50 million to 100 million. What's working at 10 million, then breaking at 50 million? Does it have to shift? What do those look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely like PODs, like points of distribution, like you need to touch more people. And it's also dependent on the category. I mean, certain things are very, very like FMCG is very it's consumed constantly. It's like body wash or deodorant. You know, it's something that you see that's where it's really important to have like constant innovation in your product category because people, while there are always going to be people that are faithful to the one thing, you need to have innovation so that you're bringing in the new customers and you're not just going to that same bank of people all the time. Whereas if it's something where you're I think brands really get stuck around that like 10 to 15 million. And that's when they need to break out from just a product development strategy thought process and move into that. How are we going to touch more people in a different way through alternative channels? And usually it's someone that's either under leveraging themselves on social media or under leveraging themselves on a variety of different outlets so that they are truly, having a cohesive universe of a brand experience for people. And that's really what it's all about now. It's not just about a product. Everybody has good products. Everybody has good ingredients, good products, a fun story, but how are you making something that people feel is part of their lifestyle and is something that they want to have an experiential moment with? And I think that's the future of brands and also the future of taking brands to that next level, be them 10 million to 50 or 50 to 100.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And you talk about consistent growth, shareholder value. A lot of founders will really chase that top line revenue, but then end up lose money while doing it. How do you balance growth with profitability?
I think, I mean, you have to keep, if you're trying to scale for an acquisition or a sale, you have to be thoughtful of your bottom line, obviously, and EBITDA is extremely important. But at the same time, you have to know where your strong competencies are and over leverage whatever those are. I'll give an example is when I came into Fantasy Files, which was the company at the time, and we had Blossom and we had Blue Cross. So we had Blossom Beauty, which is like a lip gloss brand, and then we had Blue Cross, which is a nail care brand. But at the time, it wasn't even mentioned to me really during my job interview. It was just Blossom. And I walked into our facility in Los Angeles and I was like, what are they making over there? They were making some mystery product. And they're like, oh, it's just this one SKU, this one product that we make here. And I was like, well, it must be profitable if we're making it and we're vertical in it. So tell me about that. And they were like, oh yeah, it's like our best margin maker back then, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, as soon as I saw what we were doing from a revenue standpoint versus the profitability that we were getting out of that product, I was like, this is something that we need to really focus on exploiting and making it a hero. And so that was just kind of a real time example of how I think you can um, keep an eye on top line, but also an eye on bottom line at the same time and try to maximize those opportunities.
Absolutely. So let's shift gears to talk retail because you were talking about before points of distribution, the strategy. Retail expansion's difficult, right? Really difficult. So, I mean, you've expanded brands into Walmart, Target, Kohl's, Sephora, Ulta, all of them. So, what does it actually take to get that brand into those channels? And what do most brands typically underestimate when it comes to retail?
I think they underestimate the importance of knowing what's driving the category manager's decision. And I think that they hold a lot of power that a lot of brands don't recognize or take into consideration when they're building their presentation. Think about like a buyer or category manager at Ulta. They see hundreds of decks a month. And it's like it just becomes white noise at some point. So what's going to stand out in what you're sending to them that's going to make them think this is something that's going to make money for my department. This is something that's going to turn, which is what we care most about. If you're on the brand side is you want to make sure it's moving, but if is it going to how is it going to turn for me? And also, how is this going to elevate my section of the store to be kind of a destination for people? And you think of your presentations and the way that you speak to the retailers through the retailer's lens. I think that's the most important thing that you can do as a brand. Everybody gets really excited to talk about their brand because they're founders usually. They're passionate, they're creative, it's their baby, and it's hard to think about looking at it through a different perspective. But I think if you try to do it that way, it will usually lead to more retail success.
Yeah. And I love partnerships. I get to work with our partnerships here at Alley Oop, and I know, like in retails, partnership can really make or hurt a brand. What's the difference between a retail partnership that helps accelerate growth and one that really kills the brand or hurts them?
Uh, it I mean, I would never obviously name names and be specific, but I think for every brand, it's important for you to define what you want your roadmap of success to look like and what are your like obsessive go gets. Like, I'm brand X, and I think that like the pinnacle of success would be my brand being at Walmart. And if that's your demo and Walmart is it for you, don't try to put your brand somewhere else first. Focus heavily on what do you need to do to make sure that your brand is going to resonate with that retailer specifically. And don't dilute it by putting it at, I mean, there's a bunch of competitors for Walmart that would be dilution, like small format stores, for example, like Dollar General, Family Dollar. And that's because they follow what Walmart does. They want to offer that same thing to their customer, but they want to offer it at a dollar less or $2 less. And so then you have to, it's important to start at the right place so that way you can grow in the white space opportunities from there, with retailers instead of going for just the first one to bite sometimes, which is hard. It's like a marathon, it's not a sprint.
Yeah, I mean, to that point then, so with direct to consumer, you've obviously launched a lot of platforms there as well. What's that balance then? Do you recommend direct to consumer first? I mean, what's the balance between the two?
I don't have a recommendation for one or the other first. I think in the environment that we're in now, post COVID, I mean, direct to consumer was it during
Right.
COVID because that was the boom of D2C brands and that way of consuming. And I think what we're seeing now is a shift in consumerism where people want to go back into the stores and they want to physically touch products and they want to experience them in different ways that are more meaningful in a physical format. So I wouldn't say that one is wrong or one is right. I just think approaching all of them with the right cost structure in mind is the most important thing to not sink a brand. Customer acquisition cost is extremely high, typically for a new brand, especially if they're doing direct to consumer. So a lot of times people think, oh, D2C is cheaper to do business with, but it's not. It's actually it can be very, very expensive if you aren't doing it slowly and incrementally. So I think it's just specific to the brand.
And speaking of different platforms and ways to bring a brand to market, how do you think influencers and content creators really fit into this section?
I mean, I don't think it's going anywhere. I think that it's extremely important to find the community that speaks to your brand. And so I don't think it has to always be celebrities. I mean, there's thousands of brands out there that have huge active communities of people that are engaged with them either just through their own volition or they have a affiliate program or a really cool like network of influencers that have just done a lot of heavy lifting for them. I think that the most important thing with an influencer or working with any of kind of affiliate program is making sure that the content you're putting out there for your brand aligns with the community you're trying to speak to. And, keeping that community engaged is extremely important for all brands to continue to scale and grow on any digital platform.
So when you're working with a founder or the CEO, right, it's usually their personality lends to one of the two. It's very rare where you see both. And what I mean by that is the creative versus the business discipline. right? You got these storytellers, great creative, great content people, great visionaries, but then you also have the hard numbers, the operations, the execution side of it. So where do you come in when you're working with a company to really balance that as well?
I mean, that's my job at this point in time, is to figure out how I could be the yin to someone's yang, whatever
Right.
that is. And it's, if the place I'm going to add value is through operational improvement and helping them find out what the right ERP system is, or what, they need to do to have a better cost structure on items that they're making domestically or importing from other countries. I mean, then that's what the work that needs to be done. And on the flip side, if they're lacking on the front of house, I always think of it like a restaurant, right? I think of brands and consumer products like restaurants, like marketing and sales is front of house, and operations and finance are back behind the scenes. And so it's just a matter of which area they need to shore them up in, and that's really where the work has to be done.
What would you say is the starting place for a brand? Should they work on being innovative with the product, the customer experience, or just the go to market first?
I think the most important thing for a startup brand is make sure you are true to whatever it is that you feel like are your USPs. Anytime you're going to start a brand, I think as long as it has a unique selling proposition, as long as it is filling white space for someone somewhere, exploit that, lean into it, put it on everything that you can from a marketing standpoint, from a call out in the way that have copy written about anything on your website or on your packaging, and it'll help kind of drive everything from there. But just making something a product is very, I think in this day and age, you have to have a strong brand story to go alongside with it.
Yeah. I mean, AI is coming, it's here, but it's not replacing everyone yet. But so you have worked with amazing and built amazing high performing teams. So let's talk about the people side of it.
Yeah.
With leading these teams across marketing, across sales operations, what's that big challenge that you are usually running across when getting everyone to work together and creating alignment?
I think the biggest challenge is for people to feel like they're not siloed. I think a lot of times, especially as you get into a bigger organization, I think people feel like they're working on an island by themselves. And I think for a brand to be cohesive and for everything to be clicking and moving in the right direction, it's really important for people, especially with remote work being as prolific as it still is. I think it's important for everybody to be gelled together as much as possible and have a lot of cross-functional projects for people to work together so that everybody understands what everyone else's pain points are. And that's, the reality of everyday working is everyone else in the organization is working the same amount of hours you are, hopefully, ideally. Everyone is working the same, rowing in the same direction. And, but they're experiencing their own issues every single day. And just like you are. And I think being exposed to that and understanding what those are within functions that they don't work in is extremely important for that cohesive kind of culture.
What would you say the difference is leading a 10-person team versus a 100-person team, and what really has to change in your leadership approach?
Well, a 10-person team is very bootstrapped, and, there's a lot of direct lines usually to someone, whoever the leader is. And so I think there's a lot of agility that comes along with that, which is great, but it's also a lot of it's heavy in decision making for whoever the leader is because there aren't the layers underneath you. And I think that there's less delegation at that size team. Whereas when you're talking about a 100-person team, you have many layers of management and people working underneath you when you're at a C level. And at that point, it's about making sure you really know what tasks to delegate and are following up on those tasks and following up on those projects um, to make sure that they're completed in the appropriate time frame.
That's amazing. So winding down here on the show, if someone's listening right now and they're running, an emerging CPG brand, or they're stuck between that $5-20 million mark, what would be that first question they should be asking themselves right now?
What's our cu- what is our customer experience like right now? I think
Okay.
I think no matter what size you are, the longer you're in business, the further away you get from understanding how to see your brand through fresh eyes. And I think if you are not constantly tapping into who your customer is or who your end consumer is, and understanding what they're feeling and thinking and experiencing with your brand for the first time, you will lose sight of it and you won't continue the growth trajectory that you want.
And you've built, scaled multiple brands, led exits, spoken on stage, you create content, you have this large following. What would you say is the most exciting for you right now?
I just love working with people that are passionate about what they have built or do and figuring out how I can help them do it better. So whatever that is, I mean, it could be my kids at lacrosse. I don't know, my oldest daughter just started playing lacrosse. I've never played lacrosse. I don't know anything about it, but I love seeing her be excited about it. And I'm like, cool, like how can I learn more about this and help you and be a better advocate for you and help you lean into this thing that you're really into. And I think that goes for everything in life. I just love constantly learning and growing and picking up new things all the time.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show. You have a huge following on LinkedIn, huge following on Instagram. Who's the right and best person in our audience to reach out to you, and what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
I would say probably on my LinkedIn is the best place to get a hold of me right now. Just because my social media, I'm on a little bit of a detox, which I'm going to be untoxing very soon. But I needed to have like a moment. I was like, okay, I need to start Q1. Haven't even accepted TikTok's new privacy policy yet. Because I'm just like, I want 1/4 of no
Right.
TikTok in my life. And I think
Right.
we'll see how that experiment goes. But yeah,
Awesome. And who's the best person to reach out to you?
I think I love working with founders. I love working with um, companies that are looking for someone to sit on their boards or help guide through that kind of leadership. I think companies that are looking to just kind of take it to the next level. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We can't wait to get this out to our audience. We so much appreciate it. And for everyone listening, keep doing the hard things, and we will see you guys on the next one.